Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to Modern Historians. I'm your host, Chabri.
I'm Hillary.
I'm Amari.
I'm Preston.
And we're the Millennials and Gen Zs giving our opinions and facts about history. Today, the topic is segregation and desegregation in South Florida. And let me just start, because I feel like a lot of people feel like when we talk about Florida, it's like, oh, Disney, Orlando, vacation, beaches, and everything. But it's not that when you really look into it. And that's what we've been doing. We've been looking into it because what's going on? So we're going to be talking about that today. And I just feel like when we talk about Florida, we don't look at the violence or the civil rights or everything. We usually look at Alabama, Georgia, and I don't know. We're going to look deeper at Florida today.
So going back to what Chabri said, when we think about segregation, the only thing that really comes to mind, states, is Alabama and Georgia, because that's what we're taught in school. But we never really looked into how Florida took part in segregation. When you actually look into it, Florida was not at all different from Alabama and Georgia. It was just very much less talked about.
Why isn't Florida talked about? If Florida, we live here, and a lot of this information, it's never come up to us. Segregation shaped the lives of people that lived here for so long. Desegregation and segregation, it basically told people where they could go, where they could live, what they can eat. It was unfortunate, and I feel like Florida is one of the places that mainly started that push towards desegregation, in my opinion. But let's go into a little bit about the violence and the reality of what it was like. Here, do you guys know about the Groveland case in 1949?
What was it
where
about?
4 black men were accused of, I don't know, just something to a white woman. I don't know.
What did they do?
Well, it was probably assault, but anyway, they locked them up and 2 of them were shot. They were trying to escape.
Did they even find evidence about it?
Back then, they didn't need evidence.
Yeah.
That's also one of the worst parts about the 1950s. That time was terrible for people like us, because who cares if it was true or not? We just need a reason to kill this nigger.
Oh.
Or niggers. Because it was 2 of them.
Well, yeah.
And let's not even get into the fact that Harry T. Moore, the lead investigator for the case, and who was pushing for justice for these men. So I'm sure that they didn't assault this woman. Anyway, this man ends up dead, blown up on Christmas.
That's messed up. They have no spirit, no Christmas spirit. That's wow.
Jingle bells. So this doesn't get mentioned when you hear Florida. So keep that in mind. So let's go into the legal aspect.
It's kind of interesting that I'm pretty sure I heard he was one of the first officials who worked in an NAACP that got murdered for this specific movement. And so y'all really hate this man. You had to blow him up. And I don't know even if his kids or wife was there. I hope not. But if they was, then damn, bro, you just gonna murder a kid for that?
That also ties into the whole violence and reality, because imagine being black in the 1950s and you're sitting there and not only are you afraid for your lives, but it's like your children.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's get into the legal aspect and the resistance, the pushback, because we all know the South didn't want nothing to do. What you talking about? These niggas finna sit next to me?
And I was gonna say, people forget that, because they think of Florida and they think like Cubans, mostly Hispanic people, so they forget it had that history and it still was part of the South at that time.
Let's talk about Brown versus Board of Education.
So a little after the Brown v. Board, like the verdict came out, everyone knows what the verdict is, right? It allowed children of color to go to school with white children. Mm-hmm. And so in Florida, it took them a very long time to implement that into schools, because they believed that, well, the white race is more superior than the black race, so that they believe that schools should be kept separate. But through a bunch of, I'm assuming, lawsuits and all that, it took years for children to be in the same classroom.
Oh, so the Brown versus Board of Education basically overturned the separate versus equals, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
If you guys aren't allowed to learn what I learn, where I learn, then we're not cool.
I feel like also with that, I feel like they thought that black people weren't deserving of getting the same education. You saw that with segregation. They didn't think that they had the same right to the same bathroom, the same library.
I also feel like when it comes to that aspect, that I feel like they wasn't even like, oh, I don't want you to know what I know kind of thing. It's just anything that has to do with you, I don't want it near me. I don't want to see you. I don't want to think about you. I don't want to be next to you. You're not a slave anymore. There's no need for you here.
Exactly.
So get out. And then let's not even talk about in Florida, Virgil Hawkins, when he attempted to go to law school at the University of Florida, they didn't deny him or accept him. They just pushed it off. Florida's role in desegregation, they felt like not doing anything would keep them in the clear. I honestly feel like now that we're going through this conversation, I feel like Florida didn't want to be seen. It didn't want to be the face. They didn't want to be like Alabama. They didn't want to be Georgia. They wanted to be neutral, but it was very difficult because of how they truly felt.
And I want to go off of that neutrality. When desegregation was passed, it impacted like universities because they have like campus culture. It involves like students and everything and with the games. And so they would delay, including that guy, they would delay a lot of black applicants. They would be like, okay, you can apply to get into our university, but we're going to delay it because we don't want you here.
Delay it and fill up with as many white students as we can.
Whatever
and then
black
tell you that
students,
you didn't get in because there was no space. But in reality, I held off to make sure that there was no space for you.
And whatever black students they did accept, they didn't feel accepted. They were allowed to be in the same spaces as white students, but didn't
you're still
feel...
treating us differently. You're giving us those looks. I can feel when people are looking at me. I can feel when I'm not wanted in a space. That energy that's being given is frustrating.
And it didn't give black students space to get involved with campus. In universities right now, it's just a lot of events that go on. And so they didn't give them a chance to even get involved with the games and everything, just as every other student would do in the campuses, right?
Being a part of groups and debate group and the opportunity to be class president.
Right.
Homecoming queen.
Exactly.
Those
just like the social aspect of university.
And I feel like piggybacking off of that, I feel like when it comes to civil rights in general, I feel like a lot of the younger generation was pushed to the side, ignored, and hushed when they played a huge role with the sit-ins and Tallahassee bus boycott. A lot of the things that changed, the schools, all of that was, the foundation was built around our children.
Exactly.
So the children, the younger generations, they really made a difference when it came to the civil rights movement and desegregation actually coming about, in my opinion. What do you think, Presley?
They did play a huge role, especially when I remember seeing, when I was a kid, I used to see a lot of videos when they played like some of the black activist stuff back then in history class. And I used to see all the sit-ins, how they wouldn't just get until they get their food, all the white people, and just like, trying to get everything that other white folks can get.
Just them dealing with, thank you, Presley, and just them dealing with racism and political pressure at the same time. Like, can you imagine?
Being a kid, having to deal with all that.
In the newspapers, people are taking pictures of you, people are spitting at you, there are signs being held. How do you feel about that, Amari?
I feel like that something like that will heavily affect the child's childhood, and they will definitely look at the world a little bit differently. They'll probably ask themselves, well, why am I not being accepted? Why are people judging me based off my skin color? And it'll make a child not even want to go outside because they know in their society that they're not accepted. And I feel like at that time, that was something that should have very quickly changed, but still people, they just have their own opinions and they just feel the need that, well, one person, lighter skin tone is better than someone of a darker complexion, which I feel like that's not really, if we accept everyone of the same skin tone, everyone would be like, I don't know. I feel like I'm making sense, but I feel like...
No, and that can go, if you wanted to go into mental health and all that, you could go into deeper level. Maybe black children feel like maybe are more depressed than they're white.
You brought up an interesting point, and I really enjoyed what you said. You were basically talking about how the children going through the whole segregation and desegregation around the time of the 1950s, it had to be terribly difficult for them. And you would think there are children involved. Let's speed this up. Let's make a change. Let's make a difference for the children. I feel like when it came down to it, they were completely ignored, but ultimately they made the biggest noise and they made the biggest change. So you would think that the law and everything would say, these children are taking the brunt of this. They're taking the blow. They're the ones that are going to have to deal with this. They have to go to school. So all of this was around them, was all molded around them. All of this was being created around them. All of this, like the bus boycotts, the sit-ins, the diners, the schools, the Brown versus Board education. And then let's not even talk about the big one right here. This is what really blew me, is the lodge where these kids, they were celebrating 400 years of history. So what history was that? Anyway,
suffering.
let me not. Pouring acid in a pool where there are children activists who were for desegregation. You're the manager. You work at this hotel. You see these black and white kids get in the pool. They're fighting for their rights, standing up for what they believe in. And here you go. I got this acid back here. I'm finna douse these motherfuckers.
That's just so evil.
Can we see the picture, please? Can we just cover your eyes? It's graphic material. That's insane. That's actually crazy. And that goes into how can people be so evil? This is the last part that I'm going to touch on, is the evil that came from segregation and slavery and the civil rights movement. Because let's be honest, a lot of people say, oh, slavery was so long ago. Yes, it was so long ago, but as Hillary said, it was so long ago, but
all they did was suffer. It was so long ago, but it was very long.
So, and not only that, let's be real. All of that gets passed down. All of this trauma, everything that we've went through, everything that we had to endure. Imagine losing someone. Imagine you're in the 1950s. You have a cousin that's out there protesting and fighting, and you hear that he just got killed for fighting for our rights. You know what I'm saying?
That's traumatic.
It's traumatic. It's extremely traumatic, and the trauma just got passed down. And it's usually the younger generation that says, hey, I'm not putting up with this anymore.
Yeah.
Something has to change, and this has to stop. And I'm so grateful that the children in Florida stood up for themselves.
Also, I wanted to say that, right, people don't think, right now when they think of Florida, even like right now, a lot of people from other states are coming here, mostly rich white people, as you see in Brickell and all those places now. But Florida mostly was very inspired from black culture, and it used to be very predominantly black, and now over time you just see a lot more white people, more Hispanics. There was always Hispanics, but I feel like it's a lot more.
No, there's more, to the point where you can't go anywhere without encountering someone that is of Hispanic descent.
Right. And
not that it's an issue.
People try to deny that Miami ever had any black culture in it.
I think the problem with every issue that we face as a society is trying to ignore it, being delusional.
And that keeps people in a bubble. I think the professor said in class one time, he said that it's very different here because we're in the same bubble. We're mostly Hispanics. I would say from my experience, I'm Hispanic and I just see a lot of Hispanic people around me. So I don't really interact with other races a lot. Maybe before I did, because there was a lot more black people here. But that changes the way you view things. Right. He said when he grew up in New York, it was very different. Like, it was different races, different ethnicities, different nationalities. So you always got to interact with their culture, and there's them as people, and just very in a little bubble of the same people.
Yeah, and I feel like that plays a huge.
And it makes you kind of.
I was just gonna say that ignorance.
Yeah.
This is such a powerful conversation.
Because when I was a kid, it was mostly raised among white people. It was mostly white people back then. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know much about race because I didn't really face any racism when I was a kid. It was in the background, and I just never noticed it.
Yeah.
Come down, my mom told me, like, when she went to a restaurant, she got some stares, because it was like in 2012 or whatever, 2013. So, but for me, since I was a kid, I guess no one really thought about it that much. But yeah, I never really had problems with anybody. But when I came here, it was a little bit different. And surprisingly, I felt like I've seen more race when I came here. Mm-hmm. Like, I started to think about it more, especially with some Hispanics, whites, and other stuff.
I would say that Homestead does have more black people, like in like the South Florida, South Miami area. I don't really consider this Miami, but when you go to Miami, like you go to Flagler, you go to Fontainebleau, you go to Doral, it's not a lot. You see just Hispanics.
And you know why? Because we're being
pushed out. Like,
even pushed out because they want to keep us here because they need the money. Mm-hmm. Black people offers the most money to all races. And they know how important it is to keep us, but they don't want us in their spaces. So they're pushing everyone, low income, poverty, which for the most part, the majority is blacks. Mm-hmm. Some Hispanic. Right. And there are even some poor whites, but we the majority. Mm-hmm. And so we're being pushed to Homestead, Florida City, where
it's what is
it, gentrification?
Yeah, gentrification. Like, it's harder to live. Like, if you go to Wynwood, you see that there's like a certain of it, like you see a more poorer side, you'll see like more black people or more Hispanic people there.
Right, like
and
then
you go to
like
cool little part, it's just like white people around, like Europeans. Like,
because those are the ones who they don't usually have that. We're this creative aspect. We're this color, we're this music, we're this smell, we're this vibe, we're this taste. That's where it comes from.
And they take it over. Like, they're like, oh, you're all this cool stuff. Like, I want to be part of it, but I didn't do anything to contribute to it. I just want to profit off of it. Yeah, like, Jewish people and black Cubans found, like, a community, I guess, because they all, like, found unity in a way because they were being discriminated against from, like, the majority of people that were discriminating against them. It's just, it goes to show that it wasn't even happening in our country, like, here. It was also happening in Latin America, because you see, like, the Cubans, they come, like, they're from this country, but still were split up. Like, the white Cubans were more favored by the white people because they look similar, like, in looks or, I guess, money-wise. Right. They were in their countries, and they had slaves, too. And then the black Cubans, they still looked, like, below them. Obviously, like, a product of slavery.
The Hispanic,
colorist, and racist, yeah. And I feel like some people deny that there's black people in Cuba.
There's black people everywhere. Like, there's black people in Germany. Yeah. They're everywhere.
No, literally.
All right, let's close it free again.
I'm Hillary.
I'm Amari.
I'm Presley.
And we're the Modern Historians. And we want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode talking about segregation and desegregation in Florida. We hope you enjoyed our opinion, our facts, and our commentary on history from a modern perspective. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Thank you, Professor. And until we meet again.
Bye.
Peace.